You know, some people say that Odoo business management software is like fertilizer, the way it promotes growth and all. But other people say Odoo is like a magic beanstalk because it grows with your company and is also magically affordable. And there's some people who would even say Odoo's individual software programs come together to build the perfect suite like building blocks. Well, Odoo is all of these things. Fertilizer, magic beanstalk, building blocks for business. So sign up now at odoo.com, ODOO.com.
Hey, it's Bobby Bones with some exciting news. Open booking is here for the Top Shelf Country Cruise, setting sail February 2026 aboard the luxurious Celebrity Reflection. Spots are filling up fast, so book your stateroom today or sign up to become a lineup insider to receive the final lineup 48 hours prior to the public. Don't miss your chance to make February 2026 unforgettable. Visit TopShelfCountryCruise.com. That's TopShelfCountryCruise.com.
Fell apart. The ending was perfect.
No, it wasn't. The thing with the mask was supposed to be huge and impactful, but he showed it. They did it with Bill Burr and some rando bad guy in the episode right before that.
Oh.
You have no heart. You have none. There's just a block of ice where your heart should be. That's what's there.
Fine.
Cecil, thank God you're here. Need your help.
Heath, take it easy, buddy. What's up?
Yeah, so Eli and I, we were thinking about this week's episode, and, you know, you and Noah work so hard in our shows, so we thought, why don't we take care of this week's episode so you guys could have off? So that's
right,
what
but Cecil,
me and Eli did.
there were just so many wires and buttons.
Like so many. It's so many.
And I tried Googling it. You always tell me to Google, and I did. I really did. But I think we messed it up. You guys, you're going to have to record with us after all.
Well, it's really sweet of you guys to try, though.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not that bad. Why don't you show me what you did, and maybe we can still use part of it or all of it.
I don't know if I want to show you.
No, I mean, Noah and I really don't we appreciate this? Noah, I think we appreciate this. Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
What questions did you guys have?
Okay, so what batter does go into the mixer? Because pancake and cookie did not work.
Not at all.
I'll go see if Best Buy's open.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Is it cake? We were thinking it might be cake.
Could be cake. Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, the podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts, because this is the internet, and that's how it works now. I'm Eli Bosnick, and I'll be setting the course for this journey, which, as you're about to learn, is thematically fitting. But I'll need some collateral damage. First up, the grown-ups, Noah and Cecil.
Oh, if I'm your adult supervision, you're as good as electrocuted. I'm sorry.
Eli, you only say that because I'm 31 years older than you.
And also joining us tonight, the adorable scamps the grown-ups gave a surprising percentage of their companies to, Heath and Tom.
Okay, Eli's projecting right now? Like, weapons grade projecting right now? Do you want me to do the intro and you're the guy?
Does work better that way, that's true.
You know, man, I might not add a lot of value, but I am frequently here. So.
Present.
That's what they say.
Like Tulsi Gabbard, you're present.
That's true.
Tulsi Gabbard. Fuck you, Tulsi Gabbard. You call me a lot of things.
I put up with a lot.
Can't I fight my fucking pockets some more, Tulsi Gabbard?
You kill me.
Tulsi
You make
Gabbard,
me.
clop.
She's like political ballast, Tom. It's cool.
Before we begin tonight,
She's
I'd like
not.
to take
She's
a
so
moment.
much worse than political ballast.
Before we begin tonight, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. Each time I tell our audience to or write a 3-layer deep sketch with 14 different sound effects, it's your money that cools Noah's and Cecil's heated brows and gets them back to the clicking and beeps that I assume editing is. So, if you'd like to learn how to join their ranks, be sure to stick around till the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Heath, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
We're going to be talking about the Burke Willis expedition in Australia.
All right, and Tom, it's a little late for you to present me and Heath with such a vivid Ghost of Christmas Future, but I appreciate the effort. Are you ready to weave us a yarn?
I am. I'm actually really excited to tell this story. It's a great one.
So tell us, Tom, what was the Burke-Willis expedition?
So I was actually saving this topic because I think it's just amazing, and I found it maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. I had high hopes someday we might all return to Australia, and I could do this story like live and in person, but since the world has become a giant pile of shit and no one is going anywhere, I decided that the story just needs to be told now. We're not going anytime soon. That's just not going to happen. So this is ultimately the story of what happens when you appoint a completely inexperienced and tragically inept man as the leader of something that has significant consequences. Spoiler, a lot of people are going to die.
Yeah. Tom, our uplifting pandemic episode was 3 war stories. I think people know what they're getting into with our podcast.
So our story begins amidst the backdrop of the Australian gold rush.
The gold walkabout, if you will.
So in 1851, gold was found in Victoria, which is in the southeastern part of Australia.
That's our northwest.
Walkabout's the Australian equivalent of rush. Is that
You get it.
So in 10 short years, the population of Victoria grew from 29,000 to nearly 140,000. In mid-19th century terms, this was just a hell of a lot of people, and Victoria had become the second largest city in the British Empire. As you might imagine, this population boom, not to mention the gold, meant that there was a real financial desire to connect Victoria, Australia to the rest of the world. But to do that effectively, an overland route from southern Australia to the north would need to be found and mapped. Because remember, at this time, most of the middle of Australia was just marked with, "Here there be monsters."
Pretty sure it's still marked that way, though.
Yeah.
They just also have cities now.
They definitely still have monsters. It's just like for a glorious moment in the middle of that, Tom, I thought this was going to be the story of them trying to build a bridge to New Zealand.
It feels like they could.
So a committee was formed to explore the idea of, exploring, which they called the Exploration Committee. And at first it was rather slow going, but by 1860, the idea had raised sufficient support to begin the process of choosing its leaders.
If we were only so cautious in choosing our leaders. Wow.
Now, the natural choices for leaders from among the Exploration Committee would have been Ferdinand von Mueller and Wilhelm Blandowski, as these were the only two who had any real experience in, outdoors stuff, like reading compasses and camping and the like. But the committee instead just got into a pissing match among its members, and they inexplicably chose Robert O'Hara Burke as the leader and William John Willis as the surveyor, navigator, and third in command. This, despite the fact that Burke had absolutely no experience in bushcraft. So Burke was an Irish guy who for some reason served as an officer in the Austrian army and then later worked as a police superintendent in Australia. Willis was the third in command guy. He did have some experience with living outdoors, but Burke, again, the leader of the expedition, had exactly none.
Yeah, we got to get a camping outsider, someone to shake things up. Drain the swamp that's going to drown some of us soon.
So on August 20th of 1860, the expedition took off, or set off. Slowly. The group consisted of 19 men of mixed descent, some Irish, some English, some Afghan, 3 Germans, 1 American, and then an Indian guy to deal with the 26 camels that they were going to use. They also had 23 horses and 6 wagons. If this seems like rather a lot of gear, you would be both right and wrong. For similar expeditions, it had become rather standard practice to bring cattle along with you. So you drive the cattle as you explore, and periodically they're slaughtered, but along the way, they are basically walking lunch boxes. This expedition instead chose to bring along dried meat rather than, walking meat. So that filled 3 of their 6 wagons. All in all, they set off with enough food to feed the 19 men for 2 years, which, by the way, they would eat off of the cedar-topped oaken table that they also brought, along with chairs, of course, a Chinese gong for some reason.
What?
Chinese gong. How are you going to know dinner's ready without the gong? That's just obvious. Rockets, flags, and 20 actual tons of other shit.
One of the guys is like, okay, I'll come explore the wilderness with you guys, but I'm not missing Chinese New Year. That shit's important to me.
Okay, so you did say gong. I heard you say gong.
Yep.
How else are we going to even know who lost the talent show? You guys want to let Conroy finish his whole fucking song? Jesus.
All right, so 19 guys, each with the equivalent of 2.5 beasts of burden and 1,052 pounds each of provisions, set off to make the perilous, historic overland voyage from south to north across the unexplored by white people landscape of Australia's interior. But a blistering pace they did not set. They left from Royal Park in Melbourne, and immediately, while still in Royal Park, one of their 6 wagons broke.
On like 5th Street, they were like...
Yeah, right there before they even really moved. It was right in front of an assembled crowd of 15,000 well-wishers cheering on their departure. Right?
They're trying to wave, their arms are getting tired.
By midnight of that first day of the expedition, they made it exactly 5 miles outside the center of Melbourne to Essendon, where 2 more of their wagons promptly broke.
Guy comes around the side. He's dusting his hands. He says, good news, I could fix the wagon. Bad news, I have to replace one of the wheels with this spare gong.
Fuck you! Fuck you! How the hell are we supposed to eat jerky without a gong, idiot?
Chinese New Year. We live in a society.
Thank you. And our thing's broken.
By August the 23rd, 3 days after setting off, they had made it all the way to Lansfield, which, according to Google Maps, should take you 14 hours to walk to. By the 6th day, they had made it to Mia Mia, a 21-hour stroll, by the way, where they took their first rest day. And 21 hours from the point of departure, not 21 hours from Lansfield. Clearly, things were not going smoothly for the expedition. By the 15th of September, they decided to ditch some of the heavy shit that they were bringing along. Notably, they chose to abandon not the Chinese gong or the big oak table, but instead they jettisoned sugar and lime juice and some of their guns and ammunition.
What?
No idea. That wouldn't be enough weight, though, and 9 days later, Burke ordered that there was now a baggage weight limit for personal belongings for each of the men, limiting them to 30 pounds of personal kit each.
Whose gong was it personally?
Burke, at this point, also ordered that maybe the men should walk and to load up the camels so the horses didn't have to work so hard.
He's like, apparently if we'd done this right off the bat, we'd have gotten here in 21 hours. So I'm sorry, it just now is occurring to me.
By the time the expedition reached the Darling River, Burke ordered the crew to dump 60 gallons of rum, which they had brought along. And this is for fucking real. They brought the rum along for the camels to drink. Because they thought the rum would prevent camels from getting scurvy.
Okay, that's different.
That's true. That is how it is.
Rum, by the way, does not prevent scurvy. But 60 gallons of rum does weigh a little under 500 pounds.
Oh,
Jesus.
It was at this point that the first of the defections began, with 2 guys just piecing out, including the expedition's surgeon. When the surgeon quit, this moved Willis, the surveyor, navigator, and third in command, firmly into second place.
The resignation just says, I'm sorry, I don't think I can work for an employer who cares so little about camel scurvy. Sincerely.
By October 12th, the expedition had made their way to Menindee, a small town on the banks of the Darling River. The first leg of this journey, this is the initial 470 miles, had taken them nearly 2 months. The regular mail service, as a point of comparison, regularly made this same journey in about a week. So they were moving 8 times slower than the speed of snail mail.
1800 snail mail.
8 mailmen pass them as they're walking. They just keep like a long line of them.
It's the same one 4 times now.
He walks by. He's like, "What you talking about, Burke Willis?"
Different strokes.
So 2 of the officers at this point quit. Burke then fired 13 more men.
All right, sing a song or you're fired. Too slow. Gong. See? Told you. You would want this. Nailed it.
So remember, they only started with 19 guys.
Right.
So that's 15 of 19 that were just donezo at this point. Only 4 remained from the original crew. They hired 8 more guys, bringing the new expedition to 12 men and still 49 pack animals and 6 wagons.
Wow. One of them's just like, oh, damn it, y'all. We could have mailed the gong this far. I feel stupid now. This was dumb.
They could have mailed themselves this far.
Aren't you, once you lose way more than half your members, aren't you supposed to rename your band? Isn't that a law or something? You can't call it Jefferson Airplane. It has to be Starship now. You have to change it.
So it was at this point that the South Australian government issued a challenge, along with a very sizable reward for the first group to traverse Australia from the south to the north. This challenge caught the attention of John McDougall Stewart. He's a very seasoned explorer and not at all a total fucking tool. This understandably made Burke nervous. He wanted to make the crossing first and claim the fame and the reward money, so he decided to take 7 of the fittest men and the strongest horses, along with a small amount of equipment, to speed ahead to Cooper Creek.
But they already started, right? They're not starting from like the South Coast. How is that not a rule in the contest? Everyone on the North Coast is just like, made it, I win. I walk out your door, turn back in.
And the thing here I don't understand is that they were going to go on ahead real fast to Cooper Creek, and then the plan was for them to wait for the rest of the guys to catch up. How that is supposed to make things faster in total, I cannot possibly understand.
No, that's fucked up with those 7 guys.
So nonetheless, they headed out toward Cooper Creek on October the 19th, and this time, things actually went fairly well, though not because of anything that they did. The weather was unseasonably mild, which in Australia means that it only exceeded 90 degrees twice on their way to Cooper Creek. And there was plenty of rain, so they were able to water the men and the horses without much difficulty. Burke reached Cooper Creek on November the 11th, though he split his party during the trip, sending one of the party, this is going to be important, a guy by the name of William Wright, back to Menindee to get the rest of the gang and some supplies. So Cooper Creek was really the edge of European explored Australia. This was essentially the edge of the earth for these guys.
Well, okay, and technically where the expedition part starts, right?
Right.
Up until now, they've just been arguing on their way to the trailhead.
It's not wrong at all. So here they formed a depot, and they began to scout the land north for the next leg of their journey, but they were forced to abandon their first newly built camp because a plague of rats forced them to move to a new camp further downstream.
Fucking what?
Here, rats just showed up and fucking kicked them out of town.
Probably venomous, too, because it's Australia, yeah.
I feel like you want to go upstream from that when you start your new spot.
So here they erected a crude stockade, and they named the place Fort Willis. The idea was to wait at Fort Willis for a few months rather than attempt to travel during the brutal heat of the Outback's unrelenting summer. But Burke again grew antsy, and on December the 16th, Burke decided to leave Fort Willis to head to the Gulf of Carpentaria. It was at this point that things went from plague of rats bad to much, much worse.
All right. Well, looks like 40% of the country thinks that Burke is doing an awesome job, so we're going to take a quick break for something we like to call Apropos of Nothing. Jenkins, you got a minute, mate?
Yes, sir, and may I say congratulations again on being made a leader of this here expedition, sir.
Right, thank you. Who would have thought that Mueller would throw paper twice in a row, huh?
Well, you would, sir, you did.
Yes, I did. So, I just want to go over a couple of minor details on the plan here.
Of course, sir.
Right, so we're going up, right?
We're north.
Yeah,
sir.
north. That's the word. That was bugging me. It was bugging me. And like, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, right? So we should probably just right? Like that. Yeah.
Wait, you might want to stop up at Coopersburg for supplies, sir.
Supplies, right. And Coopersburg would be
here, sir.
Yep, knew that. Cool. So we'll just do like a schmear, and then a schmear.
An excellent route, sir.
Yes, thank you. It is. One last thing, Jenkins.
Yes, sir.
This watch you gave me, it seems broken. The hands are like kind of loose and swivel all over the place.
Well, that's because it's a compass, sir.
Compass! Right, totally. I knew that. I was just joking.
Of course. Excellent joke, sir.
Yeah. All right, I'll see ya. See ya. A compass? Why would I need to draw a circle? All right. When we left off, things were running as smoothly as an open relationship. What happened next?
All right, well, to get to the Gulf of Carpinteria, Burke decided again to split his team into two more groups. At Fort Willis, he left William Brahe in charge of 3 men, while Burke, Willis, and 2 other guys took 6 camels, 1 horse, and enough food for 3 months on their trip north. Before leaving, Burke ordered Brahe to wait for him at Fort Willis for 3 months. But Willis, after looking at a goddamn map, secretly revised that ask, ordering Brahe and company to wait for 4 months rather than 3 for them to return. So it was now midsummer, and temperatures in the shade were often 120 degrees.
Ooh, that's 49 degrees in communist.
And the 120 degrees in the shade is cute because, as Wikipedia puts it, in the Strzelecki and Sturtstony deserts, there was very little shade to be found.
If only someone had a Chinese gong. You guys made fun of me. You said I wouldn't need it.
But despite the rigors of backpacking through a sauna, their luck held. Water was easy to find because of recent rainfall, and the Aborigines they encountered were, much to their delight and against their expectations, quite peaceful.
See? Not cannibal savages. Pay up, Steve. I told you. Guys, we had a bet whether you guys were cannibal savages or not. So. I'm saying I bet on you not.
Now, on February the 9th, the expedition reached the Little Bino River, which is actually an arm of the Flinders River Delta, but they couldn't push further through to get to the ocean because they were now in a mangrove swamp. So Burke and Willis did the only sensible thing. They handed off their camels to the other 2 guys at the edge of the swamp, and they began trekking through the mangroves.
Oh, you never cocked the wagons.
Unsurprisingly, the pair were only able to get 15 arduous miles into the swamp before they were forced to turn back.
Yeah, 15 miles of swamp is called Trump's Legacy. Trump's Legacy.
So at this point, they had been traveling for 59 days, and they only had 27 days of food left, which, for those of you keeping score at home, is 32 days shy of getting back to their buddies and the remainder of their supplies.
It is. That is how you add up those numbers correctly. Yep.
Shush. Shush. Still, they couldn't push further north into the swamps, so they had no choice but to begin the return leg of their trip. Except that, unlike the first 59 hot and dry days, they had now entered the monsoon portion of the program. So they were pounded with torrential tropical rains that, of course, caused massive flooding. So they were now slogging through mud with poor visibility. It was still brutally hot, but it was soaking wet as well. And on March 4th, the first of their pack animals failed, a camel, which was abandoned after it pulled a full R-tracks and simply couldn't continue any further.
How dare you?
Soon after, they shot 3 other camels for food as they ran out of supplies. And by April 10th, they shot their only horse, and they ate him as well.
Yeah, that's when it gets really awkward for the big guy. Whoever's the biggest guy left. Stop looking at me like the Bugs Bunny turkey dinner thing. I know what you're doing.
This is why we drew straws for no reason last week, Heath, just in case.
So they began to eat a flower called portulaca to stave off their hunger. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. Each day shedding more and more of their gear in an attempt to lighten their load and thus speed their pace. One of the starving 4 men, a guy named Charles Gray, caught and killed an 11-pound python, which they all gratefully ate, but which gave Burke and Gray both dysentery. For some reason, even though they both got sick, Burke thought Gray was faking being sick. Though since shitting blood is the primary symptom of dysentery, unless Gray was like Eli's great-great-uncle, this seems like a rather difficult and pointless thing to fake.
That's such a good fake out.
It really is.
Nevertheless, Burke had it out for Gray, and when he caught Gray sneaking some porridge a few days later, Burke just up and beat the shit out of this guy. It's not clear from the records, mostly because the records are Burke's diaries, how badly Burke beat this guy. But that dude does die a few days later, supposedly of dysentery, which he was also allegedly faking.
Now you're shitting blood. How you like it?
The 3 surviving men stopped for a day to bury Gray before finally pushing on.
Guys, I need an outside opinion. Is there enough food coloring in this shit to make it look like dysentery or not? Squint a little. Just squint.
Just eat a lot of beets. It's the same thing. On April 21st, exhausted, weak, malnourished, and down one man, the 3 finally arrived back at their depot in Cooper Creek. And I love this. They found, fuck you, this is why, just 9 hours earlier, 9 hours, it had been abandoned by Brahe and the others. Oh. So remember how Burke had asked Brahe and company to wait for 3 months, and Willis was like, let's make that 4. Well, they actually waited 18 weeks before finally becoming convinced that Burke and the rest were not coming back. And besides, at this point, the guys who were waiting had themselves begun to run low on supplies. They were all starting to get scurvy, and one of them had injured his leg.
Oh, this expedition is turning into meeting friends in a public park. It's just like, just drop a Google pin and stay where you are, Carol. No, Carol, do not walk to us. Walk to the pin that you have dropped. Carol. Carol.
Why would you not drop the pin where you already were?
So before Brahe and company left, just in case Burke did by some miracle return, they buried some provisions, and they carved a message on a tree to mark the location of the supplies. They left Fort Willis on April 21st in the morning, while Burke and the gang stumble-fucked their way into camp later that same evening. And even though they were only separated by 9 hours, Burke's team wasn't in any condition to try to catch up. Instead, they decided to try to rest and recover their strength using the supplies that were left for them.
That they just had to dig up. Wow, so nice of them to leave all these supplies for us to survive underneath all this manual labor. Oh, jeez, do they not have a fucking obstacle course they could put at the end of it? They fucking scrambled under some barbed wire for it.
They dig up a giant box under 12 feet of dirt. It's just the gong inside. Come on! What?
There's an Etruscan dirt baby wailing away on it like Neil Peart. Bong, 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 bong.
Rushabout.
On April the 23rd, Rushabout is great. That's so good.
That would be a fast. It's fine.
Gold Rush. I got it.
So on April the 23rd, after resting 2 days, they set off again, though not without some conflict. Willis, who you might recall was the navigator and surveyor, as well as the other guy, they both wanted to head back in the direction they had initially traveled and try to make it back to Menandy. But Burke was in charge, somehow, and he decided instead that they should try for a pastoral settlement on the outskirts of, and I promise that this is a real name, a place called Mount Hopeless.
Seriously?
Mount Hopeless. That's where they're headed, to Mount Hopeless. Mount Hopeless is 150 miles away across the desert.
Of course it is.
So before leaving Fort Willis, they buried a letter explaining where they were headed. The trouble was they buried the letter in the same place that their buddies had buried the cash. And Burke didn't think to change the message carved into the tree or change the date or anything. He just buried the letter there.
Okay, if Mr. Roper doesn't eat this guy Burke at some point, I'm going to be super disappointed.
So earlier in the story, William Wright and a couple other guys had broken off from the main force to help get supplies and move them from Menandy to Cooper Creek. The problem is that Wright was short on money and pack animals, so he wasn't able to actually secure any supplies until the middle of January, which is the hottest, driest time of the year. And although now he had supplies to bring to Cooper Creek, Wright was desperately late and travel was a nightmare. They were desperate for water the whole trip, and they were harassed by hostile Aboriginal tribes.
But I said you guys weren't cannibal savages. I said weren't. It's a positive stereotype.
And even though they were the resupply, 3 of the 4 of the men died along the way of malnutrition. And incredibly, William Wright ran into Brahe when they both camped at the Corlato waterhole along the Bulu River. So Brahe and Wright, they decided to go back one more time to Cooper Creek. The pair made it back to Cooper Creek on May 8th, but since Burke buried the only evidence that they had made it back to Cooper Creek without changing the fucking message on the tree, Brahe and Wright concluded, wrongly, that Burke never made it back to camp. They left camp again to return to Menindee, unaware that they had missed Burke's return by only half a day.
Yeah, the note just read,
So meanwhile, Burke, Willis, and King were averaging 5 miles or less a day. The men, unable to carry the weight of the water that they would need to cross the desert, found that they were unable to leave the shores surrounding Cooper Creek. They were exhausted, malnourished, and without supplies when by some miracle they ran into the Cooper Creek Aborigines, who supplied the starving men with food, and this might have actually worked out okay for them, except that Burke, in a fit of pique, shot his pistol at one of the Aborigines. The Aborigines fled, leaving Burke, Willis, and King to their own fucking devices.
and thus was the first Thanksgiving Day created.
Hey, I'm not saying I get it. I'm saying there's a reason we don't let Noah have a pistol when we travel.
Okay, look, hey, if me and other people are lost in the woods, there are two options. Either I have a pistol or I'm starving. Okay, come on.
As June began to come to a close, Willis became too weak to continue their journey upstream along the Cooper. Burke and King left Willis with some small provisions, and at his insistence, they continued upstream. 2 days later, it was Burke's turn to collapse, unable to get up, and the next day, Burke was dead. King headed back downstream to check on Willis, who was by now dead as well. King, unburdened by the incompetence of Burke, met up with a group of Aborigines and just didn't shoot at them, which made them much more pleasant and willing to help.
All right, don't worry, Burke. I'll go get Willis. I'll get him. He'll know what to do. Okay, fuck. All right, don't worry. I'll get Burke. He can help you. I'll go get Burke. We're good.
In 1861, no less than 5 expeditions were dispatched to try and find the Burke and Willis expedition. The Victorian contingent party left Melbourne on the 26th of June and met up with Brahe, who, though he was from that original expedition, had no idea where Burke had gone off to. Howitt, the leader of the Victorian contingent party, grabbed some extra guys, and along with Brahe, they made their way to Cooper Creek, where they found King alive and living with the Aboriginal people. King, though found alive, was in terrible condition. He never fully recovered. He died 11 years later at the age of 33. The remains of Burke and Willis were found and buried. And ironically, each of the rest of the 4 rescue expeditions, in the course of their searches, they all made significant and important contributions to the exploration of Australia's interior.
They find those bodies and they bury them at that supply tree, and a few years later, somebody digs them up, disappointed. Damn it.
Gong, baby.
I wanted fucking Spam.
So one final note. The incompetence of Burke and his death was even dumber than you might think, because according to some researchers, it seems that Burke and company, as they ran low on provisions, they began to eat a local plant without being careful to process it the way the Aborigines taught them. The trouble being that this plant, when eaten raw, rapidly depletes the body of vitamin B, resulting in beriberi, a crippling and ultimately deadly condition caused, in this case, entirely by Burke's ridiculous hubris.
And if you had to summarize what you learned in one sentence, Tom, what would it be?
That leaders aren't born, they're made, which is not a good system either. That's not.
And are you ready for the quiz?
Yes, let's do this thing.
Okay, Tom, so all of the following are real things that can kill you. Which one of these is the most adorable sounding thing that can kill you? A, berry. Is that real? Is that really the name of it?
Good. It is really good.
Okay. B, laughing death. C, Alice in Wonderland syndrome.
Wait, for real?
Or D, Proud Boy tasers himself in the penis to death. Those are all real. Yes, including Alice in Wonderland syndrome. That is real.
I don't know if D is the most adorable sounding, but it's definitely my happiest place this week.
D is correct. Yes, that is the most adorable thing I could think of is a Proud Boy tasering himself to death in the penis.
Tased in the D. That's right.
Adorable. All right, I got a good one for you, Tom. Why is exploring Australia so much harder than exploring other land masses? A, It's the closest thing to literal hell that exists in the world, and it is peopled entirely with venomous sand demons. B. It turns out Australians find their accents as impenetrable as the rest of us. So wait, meet you where? C. Their maps are upside down. Or D. Things spin out of control counterclockwise instead of clockwise down there.
All right, well, obviously the answer is B. They can't give themselves directions that they can understand, so...
No, obviously no. They've been fucking with us the whole time. Nobody understands that shit. That is correct.
All right, Tom. When starving in the Australian outback, what's the best way to feel satiated? A, switch from butter to country crocs. B, start dinner with a broth-based marsupial. Or C, thicken your sauces with a kangaroo.
R-O-U-X. That's fantastic.
All right, well, despite the fact that the answer is almost never Crocs, switch from butter to country.
Oh, I don't think you're correct. It's thicken your sauces with kangaroo. Sorry, you were close. You were close.
Damn right it is. That means Cecil is this week's winner.
All right, let's get Heath up in here. Heath, you next.
Yeah. All right, well, for Cecil, Noah, Tom, and Heath, I'm Eli Bosnick, thanking you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week, and by then, Heath will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, you can listen to Noah, Heath, and myself over at The Scathing Atheist, God-Awful Movies, The Skeptocrat, and D&D Minus. Or, if you want more Tom and Cecil, you can hear them on Cognitive Dissonance, or watch Cecil cook like your mother wishes she could over on his YouTube show, Season Liberally. And if you'd like to help keep this show going, you can make a per-episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod, or leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes, be sure to check out citationpod.com. And remember, all who wander are not lost, but most are. That's why it's called wandering.
We've been walking for 4 days. We're out of food. We're out of water. Are you sure we're going the right way?
Of course I am. Look at the map.
That's the back of a cereal box, sir.
Right, but the bee is going to find the Cheerios.
Okay.